Yeah, look, it's a game changer from Australia's point of view, and it calls into question the stance that the Abbott government's taken. I mean, obviously, they feel they won the last election in large measure because they promised to abolish the carbon tax. As I'd suggest that the more important factor was that the electorate was basically sick of the Rudd-Gillard government and wanted to get rid of them. The lesser of two evils, perhaps, and now we've got the evil of two lessors. But the fact is that, I'm sure they've satisfied themselves that that's why they won. Therefore, the abolition of the carbon tax was a good thing. At the same time, Abbott's trying to explain that to the G20 leaders in the retreat. I mean, there's the impact of the decision by China and the United States to actually start to drive the global emissions reduction process, leading to a global agreement by the end of next year in the Paris meeting. And so, yes, we're left behind, and particularly when you look at the detail of the government's response. Not only abolish the carbon tax and dismantle the ETS architecture, but also work on the Clean Energy Fund to try and close it, even though it's about to kick positively to a budget that's supposed to be in crisis. The Climate Change Authority halve the RET or dramatically reduce the RET and so on. They're all inconsistent messages with the stance that was taken both in the run-up to the G20 and in the paragraphs in the communique in the G20, which are importantly endorsing the approach that the US and China was taking. And trying to accelerate people in matching it with their own targets, and also a significant move to agree to abolish all fossil fuel subsidies. So, I mean, the government looked quite at odds with all that.
A common complaint we hear from industry, especially involved in renewables, is just the inconsistency they deal with in legislation in Australia, especially compared to dealing with, say, a market like America. Do you think that perhaps dealing with this outside a partisan government approach is really going to be essential to Australia competing internationally?
One of our greatest tragedies in the last 15 or 20 years has been the increasingly short-term, opportunistic, personal, negative politics that we see. Politics is a game played out in the media cycle. We move on from one issue to the next, one day to the next, one location to the next. There's not a lot of scrutiny on the detail of policies and any of that, and I think that's reflected in attitudes then to particular industries. On the renewable energy target, the government made an absolute commitment to 41,000 gigawatts hour. That's what gigawatt hours of renewable energy by 2020. That is what's in the legislation. There's no 20% in the legislation. That is the target. That is the basis on which the wind companies and the solar companies actually invested. So when you create uncertainty about that, whether you look like you're going to cut it, firstly you appoint Dick Warburton, who's a noted declared climate denier, to run the review. I mean, you've got to suspect he doesn't think renewable energy, that climate change is an issue, therefore we don't need a renewable energy target. I mean, they're all negative messages. They've created a lot of uncertainty, both about the investments they've already made and the rate of returns they can make on those investments, and of course the investments are in the pipeline, in many cases approved, say in the case of some big wind farms, that would flow through before 2020. Another, I don't know, $15 or $20 billion the industry says between now and 2020, on the top of $20 billion already. I mean, that's a lot of investments, a lot of jobs.
I just wonder, as someone who's tried to deal with this problem, you're concerned about climate change and you've dealt with it both within the public sector and now within the private sector. How much impact can the private sector have without a stable legislative environment?
Well, I think that finance is going to drive a lot of the global response. There are very big risks being run by pension and superannuation funds, sovereign wealth funds, university endowment funds, banks. I mean, once they start to identify the extent to which they're invested or exposed to carbon-exposed industries, and they start to see that risk and manage that risk, they can dramatically change the face of if money's available for the development of renewables, if it's available for energy efficiency initiatives and so on, more than has been, that whole process starts to drive the response to climate change. It's beyond governments in that sense. The governments, if they're smart, they recognise it's going to happen anyway, and they should get on it and lead it, which is what I think Obama and the Chinese are trying to do.
Dr. Hewson, thanks very much.
Thank you.